Hello, little dreamer. Tonight let me take you somewhere magical, a place where flowers bloom like blankets, and even the tiniest heart can hold the biggest dreams. This is the story of Thumbelina, a girl no bigger than a thumb, who slept in tulips, danced on lily pads, and dreamed of finding a place to belong. A woman planted a flower seed, wishing for someone small to love. One sunny morning the flower bloomed, and inside its golden petals was a tiny girl. She was no bigger than a thumb. Thumbelina, the woman whispered with wonder. Thumbelina lived in a walnut shell cradle and danced on lily pads while frogs sang in the stream. She slept in a tulip at night, wrapped in silk petals. But one day, a curious toad saw her and thought, she would be a perfect bride for my son. So the toad took Thumbelina away, placing her on a leaf in the middle of the river. The current whispered beneath her. The lily pads drifted gently. Thumbelina was brave, but very alone. Then, a butterfly stopped beside her. It tugged the leaf toward the shore. "Thank you," Thumbelina whispered. She wandered through meadows, drank dew from flower cups, and listened to the stories of bees. In autumn, she found a kind field mouse who let her stay in a cozy tunnel. The mouse introduced her to a mole, quiet, serious, but very lonely. He wanted Thumbelina to stay forever underground, but she missed the sunshine. One day she found a swallow with a broken wing, sleeping in silence. She cared for him, kept him warm, and soon he could fly again. "Come with me," he chirped softly, "to the warm lands where flowers never fade." Thumbelina climbed on his back, and they soared through the clouds. The wind was gentle, the sky was soft blue. They landed in a magical garden where tiny people like her lived among blossoms. And there stood a prince no taller than her. He smiled. She smiled back, and they understood each other without words. They lived in a tulip castle, and the birds sang lullabies every night. Thumbelina was home, and her heart was quiet. Sleep well, little one. May your dreams be filled with wings, flowers, and soft skies. Sweet dreams from Sleepy Cloud Stories. That was a lovely little story, wasn't it? But bedtime isn't over yet. Let's listen to one more gentle tale, one that might make your eyelids just a little heavier. Are you ready? Hello, little dreamer. Tonight, let me take you somewhere magical, a place where flowers bloom like blankets, and even the tiniest heart can hold the biggest dreams. This is the story of Thumbelina, a girl no bigger than a thumb, who slept in tulips, danced on lily pads, and dreamed of finding a place to belong. Once upon a time, in a small cottage covered in ivy and sunshine, a kind woman lived all alone. She longed for someone to love, someone tiny, someone gentle. One day, she planted a seed given to her by a forest fairy. She watered it with hope and sang to it each morning. Soon, a flower grew, round and golden like the sun. And when it opened, there she was, a tiny girl curled in the heart of the blossom, smiling in her sleep. She was no bigger than a thumb, so the woman named her Thumbelina. She made her a cradle from a walnut shell, with rose petals for blankets. At night she lit a candle nearby, so Thumbelina wouldn't feel alone. Every morning Thumbelina would step outside and stretch on the windowsill. She would greet the bees, sing with the sparrows, and drink dew from the tulip leaves. Her laughter was soft, her heart was kind. But one night, As she slept beneath the stars, a large green toad hopped onto the windowsill. "Oh my," he croaked, "she would make a lovely bride for my son." And before the stars could blink, the toad scooped Thumbelina up and leapt away. When she awoke, she was floating on a lily pad in the middle of a quiet river. The trees swayed gently above her, and the water whispered below. Thumbelina called out softly, but no one answered. Then a butterfly landed beside her. Its wings shimmered like moonlight. It looked at her and gently tugged the lily pad with its feet. Slowly, they drifted toward the shore. Thumbelina smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. She walked through meadows filled with clover, hid beneath mushrooms when it rained, and followed fireflies through warm summer nights. She slept inside bluebells. She listened to stories told by the wind. She was small, but never afraid. In autumn, the days grew cooler. Thumbelina found a cozy burrow beneath a tree. It belonged to a field mouse who shared seeds and stories. "You can stay here," said the mouse, "until spring returns." But the mouse had a friend, a mole who lived in the dark earth below. He was quiet and curious and quite lonely. He asked Thumbelina to live with him underground. He showed her his halls and his polished tunnels, but there were no stars, no flowers, no sky, and Thumbelina's heart grew quiet. One chilly morning she found a swallow lying still on the floor of the tunnel. Its wing was hurt, its feathers dusty. She wrapped it in a leaf. She fed it berries. She whispered stories to it as it slept. And then, when spring returned, the swallow opened its eyes. It looked at her with kindness. "You saved me," it chirped. "Now let me carry you somewhere bright." She climbed on its back, and they flew into the sky. The wind brushed her cheeks. The clouds parted gently. They flew over forests, mountains, and fields of light. They landed in a garden where the flowers never faded, and the air always smelled of morning. There, among petals and ponds, stood a tiny prince, no bigger than a thumb. He looked at Thumbelina, and she looked back. He smiled. She smiled too, and she felt home. They built a little house inside a blooming tulip. They watched the moon together. They danced in the rain. They laughed in the wind. She had found her place, and it was full of light. Sleep well, little one. May your dreams be filled with wings and gardens and soft skies, sweet dreams from Sleepy Cloud Stories. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to Dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight. You are still here, so lovely. There is another gentle story waiting to be told. Close your eyes and let your heart listen. It is time for another dream. Tonight we continue with the elves and the shoemaker. Once upon a time, a kind shoemaker lived with his gentle wife. They were poor, but honest and hardworking. One night, he had just enough leather to make one pair of shoes. He cut the leather carefully, then went to bed, planning to finish the shoes in the morning. But in the morning, he found a perfect pair already made. Beautiful stitching, soft leather, as if magic had done the work. A customer soon arrived and bought the shoes. With the money, the shoemaker bought more leather, cut it, and left it out again. Morning came, another pair, just as perfect. This happened night after night. So the shoemaker and his wife decided to stay up and watch. At midnight, 2 tiny elves appeared. They worked quickly, smiling and cheerful, sewing shoes with magical skill. The couple was amazed and grateful. They made little clothes and shoes for the elves to say thank you. That night, the elves found the gifts. They laughed with joy, put on the clothes, and danced happily out the door. They never came back, but the shoemaker was never poor again. He and his wife lived peacefully, grateful for the kindness they once received. Sleep well, little one. More dreams await, only at Sleepy Cloud Stories. You're still with me. How wonderful. Let's settle in and drift into another quiet story. This one is about working together and something surprisingly big. It's time for The Gigantic Turnip. Once upon a time, in a small village, an old man planted a tiny turnip seed. He watered it, he smiled at it, and each day it grew and grew until the leaves reached the sky. It was enormous, so big he could hardly see the top. One day he decided, it's time to pull it out. He grabbed the leafy top and pulled, but the turnip didn't move. So he called his wife. Come help me, he said. She grabbed him. He grabbed the turnip, and together they pulled and pulled. Still, it would not budge. They called their granddaughter. She held on to Grandma. Grandma held on to Grandpa, and Grandpa held on to the turnip. They pulled and pulled, but nothing happened. Next came the dog, then the cat, and finally, the smallest helper of all, the mouse. 1, 2, 3, pull. With one big heave, pop, out came the turnip. Everyone tumbled backwards, laughing, rolling, and giggling in the soft grass. They took the enormous turnip inside, cooked it into a warm, delicious soup, and shared it with everyone in the village. They all smiled, full and happy, because sometimes even the littlest helper makes the biggest difference. Now close your eyes and imagine that warm soup, the laughter, the stars above. Sweet dreams, little one. There's always another story, right here at Sleepy Cloud Stories. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to Dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight. You're still awake? That's okay. Let's go on one more journey to a land of castles, golden hair, and a kind prince with a brave heart. This is the story of Pretty Goldilocks. Once upon a time there was a king who had everything he wanted, except someone to love. One day he heard of a beautiful princess with hair as golden as the sun and a smile that made the birds sing. They called her Princess Goldilocks. The king wished to marry her. He sent his most trusted servant, a gentle young man named John, to carry gifts and ask for her hand. But Princess Goldilocks had refused many suitors. She loved her freedom, and no treasure could change her mind. Still, John was kind. He spoke not just of riches, but of the king's true heart. The princess was curious. She gave John 3 challenges. If he could complete them, she would meet the king. The first challenge was to bring her the talking bird from the forest. John listened to the trees, followed the breeze, and returned with the gentle bird in a golden cage. The second task, a bottle of living water from the mountain's peak. John climbed through snow and cloud and returned with sparkling drops of life. The third task was not spoken. It was a test of kindness. John gave the bird fresh fruit, he sang to it, and let it fly for a moment each morning. He gave the water to a wilted flower along the path. When Princess Goldilocks saw this, she smiled, not just because of what he brought, but because of who he was. She agreed to meet the king, and in time, they did marry. But as the story goes, Princess Goldilocks often took quiet walks in the garden, and John would follow a few steps behind, watching the flowers bloom under her golden smile. The kingdom was never the same. It was brighter, softer, kinder, and everyone slept a little more peacefully. Now close your eyes and let the golden light drift into your dreams. Sweet dreams, dear one, from Sleepy Cloud Stories. Still with me, little one? Then close your eyes. Let's wrap you in something soft and float into one more dream. This is the story of the starry blanket. Long ago, in a tiny village tucked between the hills, there lived a little girl named Luma. She had bright eyes that sparkled like starlight, and every night she looked up at the sky, waiting for the stars to appear. But Luma didn't have a warm blanket like other children, just a thin patchwork quilt, worn and full of holes. Some nights, the wind whispered through her room. Other nights, raindrops tapped gently on the roof, and Luma would curl into a ball, pretending the stars could keep her warm. One evening, a silver moth fluttered in through her window. Its wings glowed like moonlight. It landed on her hand and whispered, "Would you like a blanket made of stars?" Luma nodded. She wasn't sure if she was dreaming, but her heart said yes. The moth guided her to a path of light, leading through tall grass that shimmered in the dark. Fireflies lit the way. Crickets played music like a soft lullaby. And above her, the sky was filled with more stars than she had ever seen. At the top of the hill, a gentle figure waited. She had hair made of clouds and eyes that held the whole night sky. She was the weaver of dreams. "I've been waiting for you," said the weaver. She lifted a golden thread from the sky, thread spun from starlight, and began to weave. She wove stories into the fabric, a bear sleeping in a cave, a moonflower blooming in silence, a boat floating on a silver sea. Each stitch held a dream. Each shimmer held a wish. And when it was done, she wrapped the glowing blanket around Luma's shoulders. Luma felt warm, safe, loved. She curled up on the hill under the night sky, and the stars blinked slowly above, as if telling her, "We'll keep you safe tonight." She dreamed of flying with owls, of dancing on clouds, of floating gently through the sky in a basket of feathers. And when she woke, her old quilt still lay on her bed. But something was different. She didn't feel cold, not even a little, because inside her heart, the starry blanket still shimmered. And every night after that, no matter the season, she always slept peacefully. Now curl up, little one. Imagine your own blanket of stars. Let it cover your dreams and carry you softly into sleep. Sweet dreams. From Sleepy Cloud Stories. Still here with me, little dreamer? Then come, let's float even higher, into the sky, where a hidden garden waits among the clouds. This is the story of the Cloud Garden. Once, In a sleepy village where mist curled between mountain tops, lived a boy named Milo. He had a quiet heart and a love for growing things. Each day, he helped his grandmother tend their garden, watering the roses, whispering to the carrots, singing to the sleepy sunflowers. But Milo always looked up, toward the clouds. They moved so gently, like soft pillows drifting across the blue. One morning, as he watered a wilting daisy, a breeze lifted a silver feather to his feet. It shimmered with a quiet hum. As Milo picked it up, the earth rumbled softly, and a spiral staircase of light unfolded from the sky. Curious and brave, Milo stepped onto the glowing steps. Up, up, up he climbed, through breezes, past birds, until the village was no more than a tiny dot below. At the top, he found it. A garden made of clouds. There were trees with cotton branches, bushes that sighed when touched, and flowers that glowed with stardust. A little cloud creature bounced toward him. It looked like a puff of whipped cream with eyes. "Welcome, gardener," it said kindly. "We've been waiting." Milo wandered through rows of dream blooms, petals that sang lullabies, leaves that shimmered like moonlight. But many were drooping, their glow fading. "They need care," whispered the cloud creature. "They grow only with kindness." So Milo got to work. He watered them with drops from the sky. He whispered soft stories to each bud. He even taught the cloud creatures how to hum to the roots. Bit by bit, the garden glowed brighter. Then came a breeze, gentle and warm. A flower as big as a pillow bloomed at Milo's feet. "You've brought life back," said the clouds, "and now you can return with a gift." Milo stepped into the flower. It carried him down through the air, drifting like a dream. When he landed in his village, his daisy was blooming again. And in the sky, the clouds shimmered, just a little brighter. That night, Milo slept peacefully, his hand resting gently on the silver feather beside his bed. Now close your eyes. Imagine the clouds above, soft, kind, glowing with dreams. Let them carry you into sleep from Sleepy Cloud Stories. You're still listening. How cozy. Let's wander into one more dream, a place where warm bread rises with the moon, and wishes are baked into every slice. This is the story of the Night Bakery. In a quiet city where lanterns blinked like sleepy eyes, there was a bakery that opened only after sunset. Its windows were always foggy, its lights dim and golden. The baker, no one quite knew. Some said she had flour in her hair. Others said she spoke to dough like it was alive. But one night, a curious girl named Lyra couldn't sleep. She followed the smell of cinnamon and stars to the corner of Wishing Street and saw the door of the Night Bakery crack open. Inside was soft music. The air smelled of vanilla, honey, and old magic. Behind the counter stood a woman with eyes like melted chocolate and a voice as warm as soup. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Would you like to help?" Lyra nodded. She washed her hands, rolled up her sleeves, and stepped into a kitchen that didn't feel quite real. Flour floated like snow. Bowls stirred themselves. Rolling pins danced across the table. The baker handed her a glowing recipe. "One batch of dream biscuits, please." Lyra mixed stardust with oat crumbs, kneaded hope into the dough, and shaped each biscuit into tiny stars. They baked in silence. Then came the moon loaf, the lavender braid, and the sleepy seed buns. Each treat was placed into boxes with names written in sugar. Aiden, who dreams of flying. Mira, who misses her cat. Jonas, who just needs a little calm. As dawn approached, the boxes floated out the door, one by one, carried by paper birds into bedroom windows. Lyra wiped flour from her nose. "Will I ever come back?" The baker smiled. "Only when you truly need rest." Lyra walked home as the stars faded. She curled into bed, warm and full of something she couldn't name, and the scent of moon bread followed her into her dreams. So now, little one, close your eyes. Breathe in. Can you smell it? Vanilla, lavender, rest, sweet dreams. From Sleepy Cloud Stories. Still with me, sweet dreamer? Then let's float, just like a feather across the sea. This is the story of the Pillow Boat. In a sleepy harbour where the waves whispered lullabies, a little boy named Nilo lived in a lighthouse. He loved stars, maps, and things that rocked gently back and forth. But Nilo had trouble falling asleep. His thoughts bobbed like boats in a storm. One night, he asked the sea, "Can you help me rest?" The sea replied with the breeze. And just like that, his pillow lifted into the air, grew bigger, wider, softer, until it became a boat. Nilo climbed aboard, wrapped in a blanket of sky, and the boat gently rocked into the waves. Stars blinked above. The lighthouse winked goodbye. Nilo passed glowing jellyfish, whales that sang in deep voices, and floating islands made of driftwood and light. Each island held something quiet, a hammock made of fog, a kitten curled on a marshmallow, a tree that hummed when touched. He dropped anchor at Dream Island, where he sipped warm tea from a shell and listened to stories told by a gentle seal. The sea whispered, "Stay as long as you like." And so he did. He drew constellations in the sand, built castles from clouds, and rocked gently, gently in his pillow boat. Eventually the stars grew sleepy. Nilo climbed back aboard. The boat drifted home, carrying him with a heart full of calm. When he woke, his pillow felt softer. His dreams smelled like salt and starlight, and he never feared bedtime again. Now close your eyes. You have your own pillow boat. Let it take you wherever dreams begin. Good night, sailor. From Sleepy Cloud Stories. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to Dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight, hello again, little dreamer. Tonight we float higher than clouds, where the sky stretches like a blanket, and one tiny star is getting very, very sleepy. This is the story of the sleepy star, far beyond the moon, where galaxies turn slowly like carousel lights. There is a baby star named Luma. She twinkled gently, not too bright, not too shy, just enough to be noticed by passing comets. Every evening the other stars stretched their beams, yawned sparkly yawns, and settled into their constellations. But Luma couldn't sleep. She rolled in her sky bubble. She counted meteors instead of sheep. She even asked the planets to hum lullabies. Still she blinked and blinked. One night the moon noticed her tossing glow. "Little star, why do you flicker so?" "I can't rest," Luma sighed. "I think I'm too small to shine like everyone else." The moon smiled gently. Even the quietest star matters to the night. She pointed below to Earth, where a child was gazing up through a telescope, smiling at Luma's faint glow. Luma blinked, surprised, then warmed. The wind whispered by, slow and soft, carrying stories from sleeping children. dreams of forests made of candy, pianos that played by moonlight, and libraries floating in the clouds. The dreams drifted through space like feathers, and Luma caught each one in her light. They made her beam feel cozy, not bigger, but softer. Finally, she stopped flickering. She dimmed gently, curled into the curve of the Milky Way, and slept. If you look up tonight, you might see a gentle little glow, not the brightest, but the calmest. And maybe, if you listen close, you'll hear Luma dreaming back. Sleep well, sleepy star, and you too, little listener, from Sleepy Cloud Stories. Welcome back, little one. Have you ever had a favorite blanket? One that's soft, warm, and smells just a little like home? This is the story of a very special blanket, one that traveled all across the world. In a tiny cottage on the edge of a grassy hill, a grandmother sewed a patchwork quilt. She stitched it from old pajamas, soft scarves, and baby clothes. Each square had a memory. Each thread held love. She gave it to her grandchild, named Eli, who wrapped it around their shoulders each night and slept with dreams full of warmth. But one windy evening, the blanket blew out the window and floated into the sky. Instead of falling, it drifted, carried gently by the breeze. It landed in the arms of a little fox, who was shivering beneath a birch tree. The fox curled inside the blanket, felt safe for the first time, and slept. When he woke, he folded it carefully and placed it on a stone for someone else to find. The blanket traveled again, to a bird with tired wings, to a cat sheltering her kittens, to a child on a train who missed their family. Each time, the blanket offered calm, softness, sleep. It became a traveling dream. And though it changed shape, gathered new threads, even faded at the corners, it was never torn, because it was made of kindness. One night, years later, Eli, now older, found it again at the foot of a mountain. He hugged it tightly, smelled the scent of home, and smiled. It didn't matter where it had been. It had always carried love. So now, curl up in your own blanket, little dreamer. It might not fly, but it carries you, gently, to sleep. Good night, from Sleepy Cloud Stories. Come close, sleepy one. Have you ever heard books whisper? This is the story of a hidden library where the books only speak when the world is asleep. In a small town covered in ivy and quiet, there was a library no one remembered. Its windows were dusty, its doors always closed. But every night when the last light in the village blinked out, the pages rustled open. The books stretched their spines. They whispered to each other. Poetry sang lullabies. Adventure tales yawned together. Maps unrolled to dream of oceans. One night, a child named Mira couldn't sleep. She followed the sound of rustling paper through a back alley, up an old staircase, to a door she'd never seen. It creaked open on its own. Warm candlelight spilled out, and all the books turned to look at her. "Hello," said one gently. "You're just in time for a bedtime story." Mira walked inside. The books floated from their shelves, forming a soft circle around her. One opened itself and began to read aloud. It told of cloud castles, singing frogs, and a clock made of dreams. Each page turned slowly, soft as feathers, and the more Mira listened, the more her thoughts slowed. Her eyelids drooped. Her breath matched the turning of pages. Eventually, the books closed themselves, gently tucked Mira under a blanket of poetry, and sang her to sleep. By morning, the library had disappeared, but Mira remembered the story. And every night after, she found it again in her dreams. So now, close your eyes. Can you hear the whisper? Shh. The stories are waiting at Sleepy Cloud Stories. Hello again, dreamer. Tonight let's follow the quietest sound of all, the tiny clink of buttons being placed in a jar. This is the story of the button collector. In a village where everyone collected something, teacups, feathers, old postcards, there lived a child named Theo who collected buttons, big ones, tiny ones, wooden, glass, golden, glittery. Every button had a story. Theo found one in a coat pocket at the market. One fell from an umbrella during a storm. Another washed ashore after a sailor's journey. He kept them in a velvet pouch, but at night he sorted them carefully. One pile for kindness, one for courage, one for dreams. One evening, the moonlight flickered strangely through his window. Theo looked outside and saw a trail of buttons, glowing faintly, leading into the woods. He followed. The forest was soft and quiet. Owls blinked, leaves whispered. The button trail led to a small tree house built into an ancient oak. Inside were jars, rows and rows, each filled with buttons and glowing softly. A gentle voice spoke. We are the keepers of the small things people forget. Buttons, marbles, paper wishes. We hold memories too tiny to speak. Theo smiled. He offered his pouch. They poured the buttons into a jar labelled Bravery at Bedtime. It glowed warm. That night, Theo returned home. His hands were empty, but his heart was full. Because sometimes the littlest things hold the biggest peace. So now, dreamer, what will you place in your jar tonight? Sleep softly. And don't forget your dreams. From Sleepy Cloud Stories. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to Dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight. Welcome back, sweet dreamer. Tonight, let me take you somewhere soft and weightless. A place floating high above the trees, where dreams grow quietly in a hidden garden made of clouds. This is the story of the Cloud Garden. In the skies above a sleepy town, there lived an old gardener named Pip. No one had ever seen him because he lived on a patch of floating cloud, far above the tallest rooftops. Pip wasn't a gardener of soil and leaves. He grew dreams, and not just any dreams, but the gentle ones, the kind that help children sleep. Each morning before the world awoke, he watered rows of dream flowers. There were blossoms shaped like rocking chairs, petals that hummed lullabies, and vines that twirled into quiet stories. He used silver mist to keep them soft, and moonlight dust to help them bloom. But sometimes, a child would have a troubled night. A dream would wilt, a flower would fade, and Pip would feel it. So he'd pick a fresh blossom, wrap it in a breeze, and send it gently down to earth. One evening, he noticed a new patch of sky, dim, flickering, and cold. A child far below was tossing in bed, too many thoughts spinning. Pip reached for a rare blossom, a glowing blue flower with velvet petals. It only bloomed once every 100 nights. He whispered a soft wish to it, then placed it in a puff of wind and watched it glide slowly downward. In a house below, a small girl named Leela turned in bed, then paused. A breeze touched her cheek, and suddenly her thoughts slowed. She dreamed of floating islands, of cloud creatures playing flutes, and flowers that whispered her name. Up in the sky, Pip smiled. He saw her dream glowing bright and steady, a sign the cloud garden had done its work. He poured fresh mist on the seeds, yawned a big yawn, and curled up beneath a petal umbrella. The clouds above softened, the world below sighed. So now, little one, let your own dream grow. There's a flower waiting for you in the quiet sky tonight. Close your eyes now. Another tale is waiting. Hello again, little traveler. Tonight we board a very special train. Not one that rushes, but one that floats gently from star to star. This is the story of the sleepy train. Every night at exactly midnight, a silver train slides quietly across the sky. Its wheels make no sound. Its lights glow soft and golden. This train doesn't take you to cities or towns. It takes you to dreams. Each car holds a gentle world. One has feather beds that rock like boats. Another has giant books that read themselves aloud. One has windows that show clouds shaped like castles. The conductor of the train is a wise old owl. He wears a cap and tiny glasses and calls softly, "All aboard. Next stop, the land of rest." Children don't need tickets, only closed eyes and open hearts. One night, a little boy named Milo was wide awake. He stared at his ceiling, his thoughts swirling like wind. Suddenly he heard a distant whistle. He turned his head. There it was, outside his window. The sleepy train. He climbed aboard and found a seat made of quilted clouds. The owl smiled, offered him a mug of warm starlight, and the train began to move. It passed fields of yawning lions, lakes where dreams floated like lily pads, and tunnels lit with tiny lanterns held by mice. As they travelled, Milo's breath slowed. His eyelids grew heavier. In the final car, a bed waited just for him, soft as fog, cool as moonlight. He curled under a blanket of hush, and as the train rocked gently, he fell into the deepest sleep he had ever known. The owl turned down the lights, the stars blinked slowly, and the sleepy train glided onward, carrying dreams to every sleeping child. So now, little one, step aboard. There's the seat waiting just for you. From Sleepy Cloud Stories. Welcome back, Quiet Heart. Tonight let's walk through a peaceful forest and find the tree that never sleeps, because it holds the light of every child's dream. This is the story of the lantern tree. In the center of a quiet forest, far from roads and noise, stood a tree older than time. Its trunk was smooth and silver. Its roots curled like resting foxes, and from every branch hung glowing lanterns. Each lantern held a dream. Some flickered gently, like thoughts not yet formed. Others glowed strong, shaped like castles, clouds, or gentle hands. No two were the same. The tree was tended by a quiet keeper, a fox with golden fur and kind eyes. Every night the fox padded up the branches, checking each light. When a lantern dimmed, he whispered a story to it. When one glowed too bright, he covered it with a petal shade. One night the fox noticed a missing light. A dream had not arrived. He turned to the stars. A child named June had fallen asleep without a dream to carry. The fox took an empty lantern, filled it with wind chimes, feathers, and a single tear of moonlight. He climbed the tree, hung the new lantern high, and gently hummed a lullaby. Far away in her bed, June turned her head. Her breath slowed, and in her mind, a forest began to grow. The lantern tree lit the path. The fox welcomed her, and June's dream began. From that night on, her lantern never missed its place. The tree continued to glow. The forest remained hushed, and the fox, faithful as ever, tended to each and every light. So now, curl up. Your lantern is ready, and the fox is watching over you. Sleep softly, dream deeply. More gentle stories lie just ahead. Hello again, sleepy soul. Tonight let's visit a place forgotten by time. A quiet house, tucked at the end of a mossy path, where stories sleep between the floorboards, and the walls remember every dream. This is the story of the house that waited. Long ago, in a village now hidden by ivy, stood a little cottage made of stone and wood. It had crooked windows, a red chimney, and a blue door that hadn't opened in years. But the house wasn't empty, it was waiting. Inside, everything stayed as it was. A teacup on the table, a pair of boots by the fire, a lullaby half sung in the still air. No one remembered who built it. No map showed the way. But each night as the stars rose, the house softly hummed. It remembered the laughter of children, the warm light of stories told by fire, and the gentle hush of dreams settling like dust. Then one night, a little girl named Elsie wandered into the woods, chasing a firefly. She followed it deeper, past whispering leaves and sleepy birds, until she reached the blue door. She knocked. The door creaked open. Inside, the house felt warm, like it had been waiting just for her. She curled up on a faded couch, and the house sighed softly, as if to say, "Welcome home." A book opened by itself. A clock ticked in rhythm with her breathing. And somewhere, deep in the beams and stones, the old lullaby began again. Elsie listened, eyes heavy. She wasn't scared. She was safe. The fire crackled, low and steady. The curtains danced a little. The house wrapped itself around her like a quilt. Outside, the wind slowed. Inside, dreams returned. No one saw the house again. But sometimes, on quiet nights, a soft light glows between the trees. And if you listen closely, you might hear that lullaby too. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to Dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight, welcome back, soft heart. Tonight's story begins in the most peaceful place of all, beneath a sleepy head. This is the story of the pillow that learned to float. There once was a pillow, plump and pale, stitched with stars no one could see unless they truly rested. It lived on a child's bed, always ready, always quiet. Its job was simple, to hold sleepy heads, absorb wandering thoughts, and wait for morning. But this pillow had a secret dream. It wanted to float, not just hover, but fly. To lift a child gently into the sky and carry them through dreams. Night after night it practiced. It puffed itself a little taller, shifted softly when no one looked, and hummed lullabies into the sheets. And then, one special evening, as the moon rose high and a breeze whispered through the window, a little boy named Theo laid his head down with a wish in his heart. He wanted to visit the clouds. The pillow heard. It stirred. It glowed. And then, ever so gently, it lifted from the bed, carrying Theo upward. They floated through soft silver air, past stars that blinked kindly, over forests wrapped in night. The pillow stayed warm beneath him. Theo smiled in his sleep. They passed dream balloons, castles made of folded blankets, and lullabies drifting like mist. Finally, just before dawn, the pillow carried him back, settling into the mattress with a sigh, like nothing had happened at all. But Theo remembered, not with his eyes, but with his smile. And the pillow, it knew it had done its job, carrying one dream safely there and back again. And every night after, when sleep called softly, the pillow waited, ready to float again. Hello again, night listener. Tonight let's follow a sound that once echoed across the stars, a sound now missing, and a moon searching gently for its voice. This is the story of the moon's lost bell. Long ago, before clocks and calendars, the moon rang a bell. It chimed once each night, a soft, silver sound that signaled dreams were near. Children smiled in their sleep when they heard it. Birds tucked their heads beneath wings. Even the sea calmed. But one cloudy evening the bell vanished. The moon searched. It asked the wind, "Have you seen my bell?" The wind whispered, "I only carry echoes." It asked the stars. They twinkled. "We only shine." The moon grew quiet. Its light dimmed. The world felt just a little less sleepy. Down below, in a tiny boat on a quiet lake, a girl named Nia listened to the stillness. She'd always heard the moon's bell, but tonight, silence. She looked up. The moon looked down. And something passed between them. Nia reached into the boat's lantern. Inside, instead of flame, was a single silver chime, small and glowing. She held it high. The bell shimmered, and the moon blinked once, twice, then smiled. With a breath as soft as cloud, the bell floated upward. It rang once, and the sound wrapped the world like a blanket. The moon glowed again. The dreams returned. And every night since, when the sky is still and hearts are open, the bell rings again. You may not always hear it, but your dreams will. Hello again, little dreamer. Tonight we'll follow a flickering light, one that never goes out, even in the deepest parts of night. This is the story of the Lantern Keeper. At the very edge of a sleepy village, there was a small wooden tower with round windows and a red roof. In it lived a boy named Milo, who had one very important job. Each night as the stars appeared, Milo lit a lantern. But this wasn't just any lantern. It held a quiet golden glow, soft as a whisper and warm as a hug. The lantern was meant to guide dreams home, not just his own, but the dreams of everyone in the village. He would carry it through the cobbled streets, past bakeries with sweet smells, past closed shutters and sleepy cats. As he walked, the lantern's glow would spread, through windows and doors, into pillows and blankets. Children would turn in their sleep, smiling softly. Parents would exhale deeply. Even the wind would quiet down. Some nights, the lantern flickered, not from wind, but from forgotten dreams. That's when Milo would whisper into the glass, "Come back." And slowly, the light would grow again. One night, a little girl named Aya lost her dream. She cried quietly in her bed, unable to sleep. Milo saw the lantern dim. He knew. He tiptoed to her window, held up the lantern, and closed his eyes. He whispered, "Find her." The lantern floated just a little. and a golden thread of light reached out, wrapped around Aya like a lullaby, and settled her heart. She sighed and slept. When Milo returned to his tower, the lantern glowed brighter than ever. Some say the lantern is still lit every night. Not everyone sees it, but those who believe always feel it. Welcome back, sleepy one. Let's tiptoe into a place where the trees are small, the animals are polite, and every leaf smells faintly of honey. This is the story of the teacup forest. Far away beyond ordinary woods, there is a forest no taller than a table. The trees are the size of teacups, the mushrooms wear mossy hats, and the animals speak only in quiet tones. In this forest lived a squirrel named Pip, who wore a tiny scarf and collected sugar cubes. He lived under a blueberry bush and kept a clock made of petals and dew. Pip's favourite time of day was twilight. When the forest slowed, the breeze turned sleepy, and everyone gathered for evening tea. Yes, tea. In the middle of the forest stood a long table made of bark and button mushrooms, with tiny chairs for every creature. They didn't talk much, just nodded, sipped tea, and watched the stars appear above the tulip trees. But one evening, the tea didn't steep. The water stayed cold. The forest frowned, the moon paused, even the fireflies stopped blinking. Pip knew something was wrong. He scampered to the base of the forest, where a sleepy spring burbled through stones. The spring yawned. "I'm tired," it said. Pip nodded. Everyone gets tired. So he brewed tea with lavender and quiet songs, brought it to the spring, and waited. The spring sipped, sighed, and began to bubble again. The forest warmed, the teacups filled, and the stars blinked once more. That night, the tea was sweeter than ever, and Pip, though he never said a word, knew the forest was grateful. Hello once more, little listener. Tonight's tale begins in the corner of a quiet hallway, where a shoe once sat, waiting to be found. This is the story of the sleepy shoe. It wasn't fancy, not shiny or new, just a soft little slipper, stitched from felt and lined with cloud-like wool. It had belonged to a boy named Leo, who wore it every evening when stories were read, and yawns became longer than words. But one day, the shoe was left behind, tucked under a bench beside a wall, and so it waited. While people rushed by with loud footsteps, the shoe stayed still. While coats came and went, the shoe did not move. But the shoe remembered things, the hum of bedtime songs, the weight of tiny feet, the way it curled just right at the heel. And every night, as the house grew quiet, the shoe dreamed. It dreamed of tiptoeing down warm halls, of dancing slowly in shadowy light, and being reunited with its pair. Then one night, a small girl named Nomi wandered sleepily through the hall, her blanket dragging like a comet tail. She saw the shoe. She picked it up, pressed it to her cheek, and smiled. The shoe warmed. It didn't fit, but Nomi placed it beside her bed. That night, the shoe dreamed again, not alone but beside soft breathing and slow dreams. And though it was still just one, it no longer felt missing. Somewhere in the night, all forgotten things find rest, even a sleepy little shoe. Welcome back, little dream traveller. Tonight we listen to something rarely heard, the sound of a clock, asleep. This is the story of the clock that slept. In the centre of an old town square stood a clock tower, tall, gentle, and proud. Its hands ticked softly every second, marking time not just for the town, but for the hearts that lived there. Children played beneath it. Bakers set their ovens by it. Birds rested on its ledges, trusting its rhythm like a heartbeat. But the clock, was tired. It had ticked for 100 years without ever missing a moment. It had counted every snowflake, every song, every hug, hello, and tearful goodbye. And one misty evening, as the clouds curled close around the rooftops, the clock sighed and went still. No one noticed right away. The fog made the world move slowly anyway. But inside the clock tower, in a room of turning wheels and silver cogs, something very small stirred. A tiny gear named Min turned in her sleep. She blinked one eye, then the other. "Oh," she whispered, "it's time." Min had lived deep in the clock for as long as she could remember. She wasn't fast or loud, but she was patient. She stepped carefully across winding springs and golden chains, past sleepy levers and yawning pendulums. At the very heart of the tower, she found the sleep bell. It only rang when the clock needed rest, and now it glowed gently. Min sat beside it. She didn't try to fix anything. She didn't rush. Instead, she curled up and hummed the oldest lullaby in time's memory. The gears sighed, the springs relaxed, the tower exhaled, and the clock slept. One full night, one perfect dream, and at sunrise, with the town still wrapped in mist, the clock's hands moved again. Slowly, surely, gently. Tick, tick. Not because it was told to, but because it was ready. The people noticed. Some smiled. Some simply felt better without knowing why. And high in the tower, Min yawned and curled back into her little nest of gears, because sometimes even time itself just needs a nap. You're still with me. That's wonderful. Let's breathe in slowly and let the night grow softer. This next story is about a tiny light, brave enough to glow when the world turned dark. Even the smallest spark can shine the way. Let me tell you about the little lantern. In a quiet village by the sea, where fog rolled in like soft blankets each evening, there lived a small lantern named Luma. Luma wasn't like the big street lamps or the fancy chandeliers in town halls. She was tiny, barely taller than a cat's tail, and her light flickered like a whisper. She sat on a windowsill of an old cottage where an old woman lived with her sleepy cat. Each evening, when the sun dipped behind the sea, Luma's little flame would glow, just enough to light the porch, to guide tired feet home, and to remind the stars where the earth was. But one night a great wind blew in from the ocean. It howled through the trees, shook the rooftops, and blew out many lights in the village. Luma flickered nervously. Her flame danced wildly. She tried her best to stay lit. She thought of the old woman and the cat curled beside the fire. They needed her glow, so she held on. The wind roared louder. Even the moon hid behind the clouds. Still, Luma stayed lit. She imagined being a lighthouse, guiding ships through the dark. She imagined being the morning sun, waking flowers with her warmth. She imagined being a firefly, dancing with her friends in the night air. And the more she imagined, the stronger her light grew. It wasn't big, it didn't blaze, but it was steady, kind, calm. And in the stillness that followed the storm, when the winds grew tired and the village held its breath, Luma's soft light was the first to shine again. One by one, other lights returned. Windows glowed, street lamps hummed, the village exhaled. But it was Luma's little light that had kept the night from feeling lost. The next morning, as the sun rose over the sea, the old woman whispered, "Thank you, little lantern." Luma didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her light spoke for her. She had been brave, and her glow was still warm. So if you ever feel small, or quiet, or unsure, remember Luma. a tiny light can still brighten the whole night. If you're still awake and you liked our gentle story, ask someone to help you tap the like button and press subscribe so you don't miss any new bedtime tales. There's always another dreamy story waiting for you, right here on Sleepy Cloud Stories. Your support helps us bring even more magical stories to dreamland. Thank you, and good night. Twilight.